And our next call comes from Joan in Saddlebrook. Joan, are you there?
My question, yes, here I am. My question concerns guardianship services for vulnerable people. As you know, we have a total lack of guardianship services now. The Office of the Public Guardian has more than it can handle and is inadequately funded based on the prior arrangements of expectation of private funds to support the state work. I would like to know if you would, are you aware of the problem, as well as what's on supporting work towards obtaining private guardians in the state of New Jersey, as there are throughout the country. I'm talking about guardians for both the elderly, the mentally ill, the developmentally disabled who are not under guardianship already, and the traumatic brain injured, people under 60 as well as over.
Yes, we are very aware of the issue, and I know that lots more legislation needs to be done. We have passed some legislation so that there will be rules and regulations that money managers will have to follow if they are going to be put in charge of the affairs of someone who is not able to take care of their own affairs. But this is an issue that I know affects many, many families, and I think if you would contact my office with your concerns, perhaps we can draft some legislation in this next session that will be very helpful.
You know, Joan, I'm going to ask the same thing. Certainly both Joan and I, we want to protect our most vulnerable. And obviously, listen, I'm going to tell you, Assemblywoman Voss is much more knowledgeable of this situation than I am. But I do have to say that when I'm not aware of certain topics or situations, I ask that the person get in touch with my office, and if they can, come down and sit in my office and make me aware of what is needed, because that's how I learn, and therefore you will have a voice, and the most vulnerable will have a voice. So I ask you to get in touch with me.
Joan, most of the legislation that Connie and I work on comes from our constituents, and we need to know what your issues are and what your concerns are, because this is what motivates us to do what we do.
Thank you, Joan, for your question.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay. Our next call comes from Janine in Ridgefield.
Hello.
Hi, Janine.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a question with regard to health care, which, of course, is on everybody's lips right now. I am a retired municipal clerk. I am the mother of a university professor, so I sympathize with you two women for teaching. However, my health care as a retiree costs me approximately $500 and some odd dollars a month. It's my understanding that members of Congress have a health care plan which is subsidized by taxpayer funds and which has no copays, no deductibles, and covers them for their entire lives in and out of service. Is that true, first of all?
From what I understand, yes, it is true, and this is why many people are very concerned about any legislation that's going to be passed concerning health care. I think the general feeling is that what is good for the goose is good for the gander. If the people in Congress are not going to be subjected to the rules and regulations of whatever health legislation they make, I think that we should be very concerned about that.
You know, and I also hear what you're saying is that if health care costs continue to rise, we cannot sustain this. We cannot continue to pay, whether it be $500 a month and then it goes up to $600 and $700, while our income has not gone up to that level. So I hear what you're saying. We know that it's not sustainable, and that's why we know that we do have to take care of the health care crisis. And it's not only a matter of insurance, but it is controlling the costs, because I truly do believe that health care is a right. It's not a privilege, but it is a right for everyone.
Thanks, Janine, for your question.
If you have a question, please press *3, and we'll be happy to answer.
Our next question comes from Mr. Gall in Paramus. Mr. Gall, are you there?
I am. The question I want to ask, I'm still with the education bit. When Byrne was governor, the state passed a law using the state income tax to fund schooling, the education. It's in the Constitution. Why don't we live by it and eliminate it from property tax? We wouldn't have all these questions that we are having today.
What law are you referring to?
Very simple question. Why don't we live up to what the Constitution says about using state tax where people pay according to their income rather than a tax on property, which is a tax that hurts the middle class and the poor people explicitly?
Irving, we just passed significant legislation in regard to the school funding formula, which, is a much fairer way of doing things, which did not put the suburbs against the Abbott districts. And finally, we have money which is following the student and not the zip code. However, Irving, I do hear what you're saying. You are suggesting another way of funding schools. And I don't have the answer as to why we're not following the Constitution. But I do think that in the future, I think that we do need to sit down and discuss how we want to pay for our schools. And it's irregardless of being Republican or Democrat. It's finding a solution that we can afford to pay for our schools that's fair to everyone. And I know that I would be willing to sit down and listen, and I'm sure that Joan would too.
Absolutely.
And see if there is another way of funding our schools. And I thank you, Irving, for bringing that to our attention.
Okay. Our next call comes from Joseph. Joseph, you have a question on health care.
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
I'm concerned about how the New Jersey representatives are going to vote on this health care bill because I'm adamantly against it. I don't think it's going to help people in the long run. It's going to increase in prices and our expenses. And I don't think it's the answer to this country's problems on health care. And yet I call my representatives up about it, and they take my message, but I don't get an answer back from them. I never got a reply. They seem to be voting on a party line issue rather than on an issue of what's good for the people. And that's why the President of the United States has lost such popularity in this country between that and the cap and trade bill, which was going to actually hurt the public more than help them. I mean, who wants to pay more taxes on cap and trade and on your utilities and on this health issue? I think people ought to listen to the people they're working for rather than what they're going to tell us is good for us and why we should take it. I mean, they will not let go of this issue. They're force-feeding us this issue, and I think they ought to stop until they find out something that's proper and good, a better way of resolving this problem with insurance. I think they should let the bill be published on the Internet that people can read it too. They keep the public in the dark, and I don't like that. And I don't like the fact that the largest bill in this country that was passed was never read by our representatives. And it's a bill that is the largest one and the biggest expense this country has ever incurred. And I think every representative should take time and read these bills, digest what's in it, and then ask or have their constituents give their opinion on it. And let the constituents read this bill, that we have a fair say in this matter. I think that the public is entitled to this as voters, and absolutely because we are the people you're serving.
I agree with you, Joe.